Hello my friends! The Chappé and Lenormand workshop, so pleasant, was not so conducive to the architecture studies that were beginning to seriously weigh on me. In my haste to finish as soon as possible, I went to register for UP2, Pedagogical Unit 2. After May 68, the School of Fine Arts had broken up in so-called pedagogical units. No much remained of the brotherhood of the workshop with their boss. Now we had teachers. It had become very schooly, hardworking, small. In this UP, I found old acquaintance without any consultation, from Zavarini and also from the Vauban Technical High School of Courbevoie. With some of these buddies, we formed a work team. It was very fashionable to work as a team after 68. But, in my opinion, this is nonsense for an architect. An architect is the one who decides. For many, the responsibility fades behind not the most gifted, but the one with the loudest mouth. Not to mention the slackers who applaud their share of the work on the other. In spite of everything, we managed to create a few projects together, which certainly looked great. At that time, we don't just have to draw up plans, we also had to create the program to be proposed to civil or institutional promoters. Also, I realized that the reality of architecture, which I had discovered while working in many agencies, did not suit me. I decided to finish my studies anyway. March 30, 1971, 3 p.m. I finally passed in front of the jury of the architect's diploma. There are about 10 judges, architects, engineers, sociologists. It's very intimidating. I took a risky gamble to get my degree without drawing a plan, simply on the handing over a file presented in a very unusual way and accompanied by the indispensable explanations, the file being only a support to the speech. It is very thick, the result of several months of research. It was essentially photos cut out of mass circulation magazines with comments and titles written in freehand in colors in a psychedelic way. We were far from the classic typefaces that were the rigor not so long ago. 68 had been through that, and we could afford what was unthinkable before. To study, anyone who bothered could do it. At that time, it had no name. In any case, no name known for the general public. Now, it is the key of our society, to our survival, and we use it every day. It is ecology. Starting point of my reflection. In my opinion, there are two ways of looking at the role of the architect. The first is the one who does his job the best he can with a little bit of creation from time to time, but especially not very exhilarating occupation, such as co-ownership of neighborhood problems. He earns more or less well and does not ask himself any other questions. This is the most frequent case. The second has higher, more idealistic aspiration and wishes to improve the life of the planet's inhabitants. In this case, the one that interests me. If we want to be able to act effectively, we must first study the world in which we live. You also have to be able to act on the urban planning of a large neighborhood at the very least, and predict from what the various studies suggest what life might be like in 30 to 50 years from now. Being born in Courbevoie, in what became the district of La Défense, I saw how long it took for it to be advanced to the point of being habitable. The first stages date back to the beginning of the 20th century in the 1920s after the 1914-1918 war. So, foreseeing a neighborhood built after 30 years from 1971, I studied what could be the life of a child born in this neighborhood on the world of that time, and I named my project The Child of the Year 2000. Of course, the date was symbolic, because with a few years there is not much difference. Now, here we are. Here's what I was saying, having studied what the media of the time was telling us, mainly print media, especially magazines. For the future, I rely on futurology books. I specify that futurology has nothing to do with fortune tellers. It is a very serious discipline that tries to identify future trends to help industrials or politicians in their long-term choices. The state of the planet. I dealt with pollution of all kinds, contaminated water, the scarcity of fresh water and oil, deforestation, the disappearance of animal and plant species, the nuclear risk, the galloping overpopulation that had been called the bomb of birth, hunger in the world, invasive cars, the unbreathable air of cities, etc. Everything we're talking about now has been known for a long time, but not many people was paying attention. If one spoke about the risk to come, we would be told, it is the fear of the year 1000 which reappears with the string of the shoulders of someone who is full and satisfied with his fate. The same one that we found a few years later starting to worry seriously. The neighborhood, a radical transformation implied profound changes in several directions simultaneously. Techniques, very different construction could be assumed if certain technologies under studies were success. Legal, it was envisaged to build private buildings on institutional ones. Societal, I propose the abolition of schools. The neighborhood was to be like a protected car-free block with traffic roads either around or underground. Constructions was to take place on the periphery in various hill shapes with private apartments covering the public or commercial buildings buried. The buildings were to be covered with terraced gardens, half private, half public, in the middle of which one had to be able to circulate by means of a set of stairs and pleasant paths. The central part was to include a large garden area, games and education for children. They were to study at home with the help of television. Now, with the internet, it would be easier and more interactive, and under the control of enlightened parents who had received training. They supplemented their education with games in the garden under the supervision of members of the national education system and parents who had to periodically provide a kind of civic service of education. Now, because of the pandemic, we have been able to experiment with teleworking or virtual education, but we have found there that there are not only advantages and even many disadvantages. As for the future, while there were some technological advances and we had not yet seen the arrival of personal computers, the internet and cell phones, we felt it was dark, very dark. and yet we still knew nothing about the R in the ozone layers, nor about global warming and its share of natural disasters. In terms of conclusions, I ended my project by saying that we were inevitably going to end up with a gigantic garbage can, from our point of view, material and moral, and that a nuclear war would be romanticism on the side. Usually, a jury assignment lasted 15 to 20 minutes, which was very trying. But faced with these unexpected and innovative aspects of architecture and urban planning, I had to answer many questions, and my record-breaking assignments lasted 2.25 hours. I received my diploma unanimously from the jury under the applause of about 60 students who had heard around me as time went by, surprised and interested by this new town. Some came to me after, encouraging me to form a research and reflection group. But I was exhausted and had no intention of committing further. However, why not? Cautiously, I asked them to write down their thoughts on these subjects so that we would have a basis to work. We would meet again in a week's time. No one reappeared. No more fine art. A beautiful page of my life had been turned.